There is a mistake people make when they open an old toy box. They look for the biggest toy, the cleanest toy, or the character everybody recognizes. Collectors often look somewhere else. They look beneath the foot, behind the ear, under the battery cover, at the shape of a tiny hole in a piece of plastic, no longer than your thumb. Because the difference between a toy worth $20 and one worth thousands is sometimes a detail most families would never think to check. Tonight, we are counting down 17 of those details: the button, stamp, label, accessory, color, and piece of paper that can completely change an old toy's identity. We begin with clues you can check safely at home. As we climb, the objects become rarer, the evidence becomes more important, and the final clue belongs to a toy that was never supposed to reach a shop at all. One rule before we start: do not clean, repair, repaint, test, or complete anything until you know exactly what it is. With old toys, improvement can erase evidence. Let us begin with the piece most often missing. Number 17, the loose accessory. A sword in one box, a shield in another, a tiny grey blaster at the back of a drawer. To most people, these are loose bits of plastic. To a collector, they may be the parts that establish whether a figure is complete. An early He-Man figure, for example, is recognizable without his weapons, but the correct sword, axe, shield, harness, and armor can make a substantial difference, especially when the figure itself is an early variation in exceptional condition. Star Wars weapons matter for the same reason. A loose figure may be common, while its correct original weapon is surprisingly difficult to replace. Reproductions also exist, which means putting the wrong blaster with the right figure can create doubt rather than value. Your test is simple. Do not guess. Place every loose accessory in its own small bag, photograph it, and record exactly where it was found. Never staple it to old packaging or tape it directly to painted plastic. The smallest object in the box may be the object that makes the set whole. Number 16. A mark nobody sees. Turn an old toy over, and you may find the beginning of its history. Maker names, country mark, casting numbers, patent wording, and copyright lines are rarely decorative. They can separate an early issue from a later re-release or a genuine object from a reproduction. On die-cast cars, collectors examine the base plate, wheel type, axles, and casting number. On dolls, they look behind the head or around the neck socket. On action figures, a small country of origin mark can identify a production family. Do not scrub dirt from a stamp to make it readable. Use soft, angled light and take several photographs. Write the letters exactly as they appear, including punctuation and numbers. Old toy car is a description. Lesney casting number 30 with this base plate and these wheels is research. Number 15, 2 holes in Barbie's feet. Sometimes the clue is not a label. It is a design feature that disappeared. The first Barbie from 1959 wore the famous black and white striped swimsuit, but clothing alone does not prove she is the first version. One of the details collectors check is underneath her feet. The earliest dolls were made to stand on a pedestal using copper tubes fitted into holes in the feet. Later versions changed the arrangement. Collectors also study the eyebrows, irises, body markings, hairstyle, swimsuit, shoes, sunglasses, booklet, and box. Your test is to examine the feet and face without rubbing them. If the earrings have caused green staining, do not reach for bleach, acne cream, or household cleaner. A treatment that appears to work today can migrate through old vinyl and cause permanent damage later. The lesson is larger than Barbie. When an old toy has an odd hole, fitting, or molded recess, do not assume something broke off. It may reveal how the earliest version was designed to work. Number 14, the number on the back of the card. A sealed figure looks valuable because it is sealed, but collectors want to know exactly what it is sealed on. With early Star Wars figures, the card back can be as important as the character. A 12 back card shows the original group of 12 figures on the reverse. That small distinction can identify an early retail release among the enormous number of later packages. Read the logo, card back count, copyright line, retailer sticker, then inspect the clear bubble for crack, lifting, dents, and yellowing, but never press it. A blister that has survived for decades can split beneath one curious thumb, and never glue or staple a loose bubble back onto a card. Honest damage can be described. A package altered to look factory sealed becomes a problem of trust. Number 13, the button beneath a teddy bear's ear. An old teddy bear may have no label, no box, and almost no fur left. Its identity could still be hiding beneath one ear. Early Steiff bears are studied through their ear buttons, tag remnants, mohair, proportions, joint construction, eyes, paw pads, nose stitching, and body shape. Different button designs belong to different periods. The wrong approach is to pull at the ear until something appears. Part the fur gently and photograph whatever remains. A blank button, an early logo, or even a fragment of an old tag can help a specialist date the bear. Do not replace the eyes or restuff the body simply to make the bear look cheerful again. Old wear and family repairs are part of the object's history. A bear does not need to look new to be important. It needs to remain honest. Number 12. What is inside the battery compartment? Japanese tin robots were built to walk, flash, spin, fire darts, and make noise. That is exactly why so many stopped working. Before inserting a battery, open the compartment and look. White powder, green corrosion, rust, broken wires, and old battery residue are warning signs. Powering the toy may turn a repairable problem into permanent damage. Collectors identify these robots through the maker, lithograph design, mechanism, remote control, antenna, accessories, and box. Names associated with desirable space toys include Masudaya, Nomura, Alp, and Yonezawa, but a famous maker alone does not guarantee a major value. Photograph the compartment and any mark on the back, foot, or lower body. Keep the wire, controller, dart, antenna, cardboard insert, and instruction sheet. Do not force a clockwork mechanism past resistance, and do not spray oil through the body. If the robot has waited 60 years, it can wait a little longer for somebody who knows how to test it safely. Number 11. The color that looks wrong. In most rooms, the toy with the wrong paint is the damaged one. In a serious collection, it may be the reason the toy was kept. Pre-production die-cast cars can survive in trial colors that were never used for the normal shop release. That can turn an apparently strange Matchbox, Dinky, or Corgi model into something requiring careful investigation. But rare color is also an easy claim to fake. Compare paint inside wheel arches, beneath the body, and around rivets. Study the base plate, wheel type, axle ends, and casting. Look for evidence of stripping, overspray, brush marks, or replaced parts. Most importantly, keep old dealer labels, collection notes, receipts, and correspondence. Without provenance, an experimental color may be dismissed as somebody's repaint. Do not polish it. Do not touch up the chips. Photograph the oddity before trying to explain it. Number 10. The texture of a cape. The early Star Wars vinyl cape Jawa is a perfect example of value hiding in a cheap-looking part. The familiar later figure wore a cloth robe. A much earlier version used a thin brown vinyl cape. Children tore it, lost it, or threw it away, and reproductions have since made authentication difficult. Collectors examine the color, thickness, armhole shape, surface pattern, and the figure's country of origin. Some fake capes have even been cut from vintage material belonging to other figures, which means age alone proves very little. Do not remove a cape from sealed packaging. If it is loose, keep it flat, cool, and away from direct sunlight. Heat can curl the vinyl and stress the armholes. This is the central lesson of the countdown. The figure may be common. The fragile thing children discarded may be rare. If you enjoy investigations like this, subscribe. And if you have an old box waiting to be checked, do not clean it yet. Identification comes first. Number 9. The cardboard insert. Packaging is not merely the container a toy came in. Sometimes it is part of the proof, an early box set of W. Britain toy soldiers can be far more desirable when the correct regiment remains arranged in its original tray beneath the original label. The box number, uniform colors, poses, and positions help establish whether the figures still form the factory set. Photograph everything before lifting a single soldier out. Old hollow cast lead figures can crack, and bent rifles can snap when straightened. Do not repaint chipped uniforms. Keep lead toys away from children and wash your hands after handling them. The same principle applies to robots, dolls, board games, and action figures. A torn insert may show how the contents were originally packed. An end flap may carry the color code. A retailer sticker may locate and date the sale. Cardboard looks disposable. Evidence often does. Number 8. The screws underneath a mechanical bank. Mechanical banks turn saving money into a performance. Pull a lever, and a figure kicks, jumps, feeds an animal, or drops a coin into the bank. Rare 19th century examples can be highly collectible, but the category is full of later reproductions. The underside often reveals more than the painted scene on top. Look for patent dates, maker names, casting quality, period screws, trapdoors, keys, and wear around moving contact points. Rust does not prove age. Bright paint does not automatically prove reproduction. The whole construction has to agree. Do not test the action with a coin. A jammed mechanism can snap an internal part that has survived for more than a century. And never repaint the bank in cheerful nursery colors. Partial original paint is generally more informative than flawless modern paint. The money inside is usually ordinary. The untouched mechanism may not be. Number 7. A line behind a doll's wig. An antique bisque doll can look intimidating when the wig has slipped and the eyes no longer sit quite straight. Resist the urge to make her presentable. French dolls by makers such as Jumeau are identified through marks behind the head, bisque quality, eyes, mouth, brows, ears, body construction, wig, clothing, and shoes. Value is distributed across the entire object. Lift only what moves safely. Use strong light around the neck socket and head for hairlines. Keep old clothes and tiny shoes, even if they are dusty or smell of storage. Original stitching and materials can be evidenced. Do not force sleeping eyes, oil the mechanism, wash a composition body, or glue a hairline before receiving advice. A replaced dress does not necessarily ruin a doll. A hidden repair does damage confidence. Record what is original, what may be replaced, and what you simply do not know. Number 6. The family photograph. Now, the clues become less about the toy and more about the life around it. In 1994, the stiff bear known as Teddy Girl sold for a remarkable sum, not only because of her age, but because her ownership story was unusually well documented. She had belonged to Colonel Bob Henderson from childhood and remained connected to a named, traceable life. That is provenance, evidence showing where an object came from and who owned it. A dated photograph of a child holding a bear, a letter naming it, an old receipt, a repair invoice, or a handwritten tag can support a history that memory alone cannot. Keep homemade clothing if it appears in the photograph. Do not separate the papers into a family archive and send the toy somewhere else. Photograph both together and store the originals safely. Grandmother said it was old is a story. A 1912 photograph showing the same bear, same stitched paw, and the same dress is evidence. Number 5. The board that is the wrong shape. Most old Monopoly sets are not rare. Millions were made and millions were played. But before the familiar mass-produced version, handmade and developmental sets existed. One circular, hand-drawn set associated with Charles Darrow sold for a 6-figure sum. Its strange shape was not damage or amateur decoration. It was part of the game's early history. Look for unusual board shape, Atlantic City property names, handmade cards, early patent wording, wooden houses, odd tokens, maker addresses, and instructions that do not match the familiar box. Inventory everything exactly as found. Do not add modern money or replacement houses to make the set complete. A developmental object may have irregular contents because it was never a normal retail product. Do not laminate cards or flatten a rolled painted board beneath heavy books. Old paint and paper can crack under pressure. Sometimes, the object that looks homemade is homemade, and that is the entire point. Number 4. A flimsy paper label on a game cartridge. The Nintendo World Championships cartridges from 1990 were produced for a touring competition rather than ordinary retail shelves. Their labels were functional, not luxurious, and many cartridges were never expected to survive as collectibles. That makes an intact label, cartridge number, shell, screws, circuit board, and ownership history especially important. Do not open a possible competition cartridge, clean the contacts with an abrasive, replace label paper, or test it in an unknown console. Authentication needs to consider the complete construction, because convincing reproductions exist. Keep photographs, contest documents, magazines, letters, and anything connecting the cartridge to the event. The buyer is not paying for 3 short game sequences. The buyer is paying for a surviving artifact from an early national gaming competition. Number 3. The part that looks too crude. A handmade uniform, rough accessory, or unusual joint often looks like evidence that a child customized a toy. Occasionally, it can indicate something far more important, a prototype. The original G.I. Joe prototype was not a polished shop product. It was a developmental object created to communicate the idea that became the modern action figure. Its hand-worked elements mattered because they showed the toy before mass production standardized it. But handmade is not the same as prototype. The claim needs a connection to a designer, employee, sample room, trade fair, company archive, or documented collection. Keep business cards, correspondence, instant photographs, labels, and old envelopes. Never replace a crude part with a clean production accessory. The rough part may be the evidence. At this level, ask a different question. Not, does it look professional, but can its journey from workshop to collection be proved? Number 2, the absence of wear. Sometimes, the rare feature is not a different mold or missing logo. It is simply survival. Children carried Pokemon cards in pockets, traded them in playgrounds, bent corners, scratched surfaces, and wrote names on the back. That is why a commercially released card in an extraordinary grade can occupy a completely different price category from the same card with ordinary playware. For early Pokemon cards, collectors examine the edition stamp, shadow around the artwork, set number, print characteristics, centering, surface, edges, and corners. Authentication and professional grading can matter enormously at the top of the market. Hold cards by the edges. Do not wipe the surface, erase a mark, press out a curve with heat, or send a valuable binder through ordinary post. A recognizable Charizard is not automatically a fortune. The exact printing and condition have to support the claim. This is rarity created not by low production, but by the near impossibility of childhood surviving untouched. Number 1. A slot for a rocket that was never released. The final clue is a tiny channel molded into the back of a 3 3/4-inch figure. Before Times The Empire Strikes Back times reached cinemas, Boba Fett was promoted as a mail-away toy with an exciting feature, a red rocket that could fire from his backpack. The firing mechanism was abandoned before the normal production figure reached children. The rocket on retail figures was fixed in place, but a small number of developmental examples survived in different configurations. On one version, collectors study the shape of the channel used by the firing mechanism, the so-called J-slot, along with the correct rocket, weapon, paint, construction, grading, documentation, and ownership history. That tiny slot separates an ordinary production figure from a prototype connected to a feature children were promised but never received. Do not pull apart a normal Boba Fett looking for one. Do not force the rocket. Do not test any spring. 7-figure values attract altered parts, false stories, reproduction weapons, and fake documentation. If you find something that appears unusual, photograph it from every side, record exactly where it came from, handle it as little as possible, and seek independent authentication. A certificate supplied by a seller is not automatically independent evidence. The value is not in Boba Fett alone. Millions recognize the character. The value is in the surviving moment before a company changed its mind. And that brings us back to the old toy box. The clues tonight were rarely glamorous. A weapon, a foothole, a card back, an ear button, a battery compartment, an odd color, a cheap cape, a cardboard insert, a photograph, a paper label, a narrow slot in a backpack. They matter because collectors are not merely buying nostalgia, they are buying a specific version whose story can be demonstrated. So, before you donate, sell, or divide a childhood collection, make 4 groups: box toys, loose figures with accessories, older mechanical or tin toys, and paper items such as instructions, cards, photographs, and receipts. Photograph each group as found. Do not clean anything. Do not assemble complete sets by guessing. Search completed specialist auction results rather than ambitious asking prices. And when a tiny detail appears not to belong, stop. That may be the detail that explains everything. Which toy did your family keep? The one beneath the bed, in the wardrobe, or still sitting on a shelf? Tell me in the comments. In the next video, we are opening the jewelry box, where an ordinary clasp can reveal a name worth far more than the necklace attached to it.